Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Compline. Hello, Aaron. Hello, Mother. hello, Catherine. Hello, Ari. Hello, Rachel. Welcome to everybody, and with tonight's special guest. So just after 7. So just to get us in the mood, going to play something by Stairway and Mr. Graham Leslie. As perhaps this evening we think about how we share good news as we understand it, in whatever kind of context we're in, and our kind of call to be part of that, and encouragement in our commitment to do that. So this is Stay Away, and what is it? That's a good point. I don't know. It's this, No Mercy.
Evening, Rachel. Evening, Patrick. Evening, Nigel. And Venerable Groocock. Nice to see you by the sea. Evening, everybody. So, very special guest this evening. The Reverend Ian Bell has kindly joined us. So, I think doing this since August, and partly in response to kind of recognising that anyone who's been into certainly when I was younger, which is many moons ago, let's face it. That's why I have to dye my beard blue these days. But being into sort of rock, metal, certainly some of the more extreme sides of things, and that subculture perhaps puts you a bit on the edge a little bit. And perhaps that's why you're drawn to it, because that's how you feel, particularly during teenage years. Perhaps we went down different directions depending on who we are and were. But then sticking with that kind of subculture and also trying to follow Jesus or perhaps exercise discipleship and ministry in any particular context alongside that music perhaps makes you feel sometimes that you are perhaps even more kind of ploughing a lone furrow. So opportunity tonight to think about and to encourage any of us who might feel that we're ploughing a bit of a lone furrow in terms of discipleship or ministry in our context, as we try to do that from who we are as well as where we are. So Ian is somebody that I think I last heard speak at a conference up in Leeds about sharing good news, as we understand it, the good news of Jesus in a way that has integrity to ourselves, but also in a way that is understood in terms of the language that we use or the medias, the ways in which, we'll say that, that we use, depending on who we're talking to and our cultural context and things like that. And Ian is somebody who's had a lot of experience of working with people who are trying to live out discipleship and ministry in some pioneering places and pioneering ways. So good evening, Ian.
Hi, James.
Hey, rocking the Gilmore t-shirt. Nice.
That gives some clue to my interest.
No, that's all right. That's all good. Yes, no, absolutely. So, I mean, just give you time and space to kind of talk. If there's anything else you want to tell us about you in terms of by way of introduction, but also perhaps just some of the work that you have done, particularly supporting people ministering in different contexts and some pioneering ways. So, over to you.
Yeah, I'm not sure where to start really. Maybe at the beginning, in terms of your particular interest in heavy metal music, is something that I share and have done for a long time. And I suppose my interest in it and engagement with it goes back to the late 60s, through the 70s, into the early 80s. So when I was a teenager at school, I guess we fell into two tribes. So you were either a skinhead or a greaser.
Right.
So I guess that they were the successors to the mods and rockers, but by the mid to late 60s we were skinheads and greasers, and I threw my lot in with the greasers, and with that went heavy metal music, heavy rock music. So I kind of was from that kind of time really getting very much into things like Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, yes, those kind of bands. And I think I mean, that was difficult for my mum and dad to understand, because they were very much into Val Doonican and Jim Reeves and Mantovani, and well, each to their own. Yep. So this came as quite a shock to them. But I went along to quite a lot of concerts, and I kind of just enjoyed the vibe that went with it. And the thing that I've been reflecting on as I've been thinking about this conversation is that I came to a point when I became a Christian in 1974, when I was still very much into kind of heavy rock. I kind of felt at that time that maybe this was something I needed to leave behind, and maybe it was something to do with this, the sex, drugs and rock and roll kind of image, or maybe it was just becoming a Christian. I felt I needed to maybe make a distinction between what I'd been interested in, what I was now interested in. So I gave all my records away, and I've lived to regret it, because now I'm replacing all of those records and paying phenomenal sums for them as I'm developing my vinyl collection. So so I guess in terms of feeling a bit different, certainly in the Christian world, my love of rock music and heavy rock music particularly has sometimes kind of made me feel as though I am treading a bit of a lonely furrow, and people have sometimes hinted that maybe I really shouldn't be quite as interested in it as I am. So I guess that's had an influence on the way that I've approached other things within Christian ministry and within evangelism, really, that I think trying to avoid the cliched and the hackneyed and the safe and the conventional, and trying to find new and different ways of engaging with faith has always been a real passion for me.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Thank you. So how is your vinyl collection going? Because I have to say I haven't converted back to vinyl yet. Just simply looking at the price of it, going, I know it'll sound better, but ouch. How's it going?
It's going quite well. I sometimes have to engage in a bit of subterfuge and bring things back in carrier bags so that my wife doesn't notice me bringing them into the house. Fantastic. But Chesterfield Market is a great source for vinyls of all sorts. But there's always a few, always a few boxes of 70s and 80s rock.
Oh, right. So, what day is the market on in Chesterfield?
It's on a Thursday, but it's a shadow of its former self at the moment. But Thursday for the flea market is always worth going if you want vinyls.
So anybody watching from Sheffield Circuit, my apologies for staff meeting on Thursday. Because I guess the other thing that you've been involved in was Easter People, and then the ECG conference. And I remember just at the point at which they were daft enough to recommend me for training, went to ECG at Scarborough, and you were there with the Venture Effects pioneers, running kind of the fringe bit, and which I remember there were moments in that where I've never quite experienced such a sense for me of the Spirit kind of working as people shared their stories, and well, it was sort of Rick with his art, and showing some of his testimony, allowing other people to share theirs, and their sense that there was some healing going on, or the beginning of that for some people. And was it Simon Coffey was talking about? I think he was doing quite a bit on music at the time as well. So I didn't know what pioneer ministers were. I kind of came away going, wow, this is so exciting. And so you're obviously quite involved in that, and be interested just to hear some about that work and the different contexts that you supported people in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that it was, as you described, that it was kind of on the fringe, located it physically where we were in terms of ministry, really. And I think pioneering, for me, sits with the whole range of ways in which we share the good news. But it particularly, I think, tries to move away from the kind of church-centered approach, which says, we are here, this is where God is, this is where we worship God, we want you to come and join us. Some people will respond to that, but actually I think that fewer and fewer people will respond to that. And it takes a more outward facing approach, which kind of says we're going to actually get embedded in our local community, whether that's a physical community like a housing estate, or whether it's a community of people who have a common interest, like surfing or art or music or something like that. And actually asking the question, what does the good news look like in this context? What does the good news look like for the people who are part of this community? And how can we help those people to engage with and respond to that good news? And once they've done that, what might church look like? And so working that way is a huge paradigm shift, a huge kind of culture shift, I think, from the way often that we've approached this. So as you say, a lot of the pioneers are working with people who wouldn't normally have got any thoughts of engaging with the life of church, but wouldn't necessarily say they're not spiritual. In fact, many of them would have real spiritual quests and yearnings. They don't want to engage with church, or they've tried to and they've not really been very successful. So it's working with people who are really kind of on the fringe, working with people who are on the extremities, sometimes furthest away from the life of the church, but recognizing that God's at work there, and asking the question, what is God doing? Where is the Spirit at work in people's lives in this community, and how can we join in that, and how can we walk with them on the journey so that they can experience the fullness of life that the good news of Jesus brings?
I'm just wondering, so are there sharing other people's stories, but any sort of examples where I suppose, but for some people thinking, well, actually people just need to this is church, this is faith. If you're serious about following Jesus, then just come and get on with it. But where you've seen or experienced the work in other places with people who perhaps who wouldn't have engaged in kind of mainstream or inherited type church, that really encouraged you in terms of God being at work out there and before us, and enjoy inviting us to join in. But any particular examples that have encouraged you?
Well, since you've mentioned art already, I think maybe that's one of the examples that I would reach for quite quickly as I think about what pioneers are doing, because I think artists have a way of expressing themselves and a way of saying things that can often be very different to the sort of word orientated way that we often find ourselves approaching things in church life. And I've observed in one or two of the pioneer locations, people who are good at painting or drawing or sculpting or making things in one way or another, are actually able to engage with the gospel. If you were to give them a Bible passage or a Bible text, they may never have seen it before, but they're able to delve into it and express it and help others to kind of enter into the story of it through art in a way that I think often surpasses what we're sometimes able to do in our best sermons. So, I mean, I've seen a number of examples of people who either have had some tangential connection with church in the past, and then for one reason or another have decided that's not for them, or people who've never had any experience with normal life of the church, who've engaged with the Bible, who've engaged with themes like hope and light and justice, and who've engaged with some of the great Christian festivals like Lent and Advent that they've never really known much about, but through art they've been able to delve into it and actually find there something that really resonates with them. So there are other examples, but that's one that particularly strikes me.
No, that's really helpful. I was having it's Wayne, so I'll name him. I guess
Hi, Wayne.
A profound chat with a very wise Christian, and then I spoke to Wayne. No, I'm joking, Wayne. It was you. But we were talking about sort of music and metal, and thinking there's something I know there's many people from different denominations and different countries with us at the minute, but in terms of Methodism and this thing of Methodist Christians being able to spot them because they were the ones carrying the hymn books, not the Bibles. That sort of music was the and hymns and worship songs was the way in which Methodists kind of did their theology, and so particularly, I guess, in the same way, whether it's metal music or whether it's any sort of music, just like art, moves us and speaks and allows us to communicate or express things in a way that just bypasses something here, but yet connects them at the same time. So that kind of resonates with me in terms of what you were saying about the art stuff.
I think if I could just say something about that, James, I think one of the reasons why I realised that my early Christian reaction to rock music and giving away my collection was maybe not the best reaction is I think over a period of time I really come to value the sense that God is not separate from culture, so that and culture is not evil, because I think a lot of people think that culture is intrinsically evil, and therefore we need to kind of make sure that we don't get tainted by culture. Whereas actually, I think there's a very real sense in which God is very much in culture, whether it's in art or the theatre or literature or rock music or whatever particular area it is. God is absolutely in. If we believe in the incarnation, God is absolutely involved at the very heart of culture. Otherwise, I think we've got a very weird theology if we say that God isn't there. So the point for me is actually discovering God in that culture. And when I look at the lyrics of some of the rock music that I listen to, there are some that I'm a bit uncomfortable with. Actually, a lot of the lyricists are expressing a quest for meaning in life. They're looking at issues to do with love and justice and ways in which we relate to one another as human beings. And I think if we can find God in that, that's got to be a good thing.
Sorry, I couldn't work out how to unmute myself then, which is probably a good thing. Yeah, no, totally. It was interesting. So, I think I posted it, but I was listening to Iron Maiden, who seem to release 2 live albums for every studio album. But here's another one. And I think I bought it because actually there's one song on an album that they never released a live version of before, which is probably a clever way of getting you to part with your money. But it was interesting. Of all the songs, it was a song called "For the Greater Good of God," and although their drummer is a Christian and his testimony is in the Here It Comes Metal Bible plug, the Metal Bible, but it was written by the bass player who writes most of the songs, Steve Harris, and again it is just questioning the whole album as a concept album around war, but just questioning about when we do go and the things that we do or justify in the name of whether it's religion or nation or particular ideology, and just raising questions about that, and yet they sort of sing about essentially Jesus dying on the cross so that actually we might know a better way, because it was for us not to bear the pain anymore, and yet we're still learning. So I just think being open to those soul questions in other things, and not only finding them and pointing to them, but actually allowing them to speak back into church sometimes, I think. So I'm wearing this hat, which I only put on because I saw my hair earlier on when I was chatting to Ian and thought that's no good. So
I thought the same.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, but both their albums are based on religion, but from a very, very critical point of view. And I think actually there's something to hear there, because it is questioning some of what we might call Christendom and a very top-down approach, an approach that kind of trampled on or was certainly hand in glove with state and empire, and so raises questions of justice. I'm thinking, yes, okay, some of it I don't necessarily agree with, but actually as a reflection, and in terms of if we are sharing good news, how is that heard and understood? Well, actually, some of the ways in which perhaps we've thought we were sharing good news perhaps has not been heard. I don't know, but Aaron's saying that, yeah, well, Wayne says hello, Ian. And
Thank
Dream
you, Wayne.
Theatre are also a good example, apparently, of, yeah, no, they are, of, thought-provoking, questioning lyrics and of lyrics speaking truth. So thank you.
And I think one of the important things that I seem to learn more the older I get, and wonder why I didn't know these things before. Maybe so. Is actually we sometimes feel as Christians as though we've kind of got all the stuff that other people need, and it's just a question of handing it over to them. Whereas I think I realize more and more that I've actually got so much to learn from other people who may not describe themselves as disciples of Jesus yet, but we can journey together, and we can interact with each other and address some of these key issues. And I've got a lot to learn, as much as I hope I've got some stuff to share.
Well, this was a moment of prophecy. As you started to say that, Wayne Grucock dropped the comment, sometimes it's about joining in the dialogue. Wow, there we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I thought it a little bit with, so this is not metal, but in terms of Kate Tempest, who's a kind of writer, poet, and does kind of performance poetry stuff. But some of her, but I think she is prophetic. Some of the stuff that she is saying and commenting on behalf of, well, humanity, but also in terms of gender and sexuality and power and justice. Thinking there is something that you are talking about which sounds very much similar to the way I read some of the stuff in the New Testament and the gospel and the ideas of kingdom, and thinking it's almost as if we might be talking about the same thing here. We might be using slightly different language, and just where are those spaces for us to come together? I'm not sure where those spaces are, but perhaps, as you said, it's that going out and engaging with people where they are and their context, and joining in with that. So yeah, seeking ways to join in with what others are doing, rather than waiting for them to come and have the discussion with us.
Absolutely. I think, I entirely agree with Wayne. I think it's about a conversation and a journey, rather than a kind of a package to deliver. And if you have a conversation with somebody, or you journey with somebody, there's a kind of a mutual sharing. That's not to say that I don't stand firm by the things I believe about God and about how God is to be encountered in Jesus, and what a world shaped by the love of God would look like. I've got very firm convictions about that. But entering into a dialogue with somebody enriches both of us, I think. Are you on mute, or is it me?
No, it's me. Me. No. Thank you. Yeah, Aaron's just saying that another example of that is the Extreme album, who were around sort of early 90s. 3 sides to every story, the 3 sides being yours and mine and truth. And I kind of like the, was it Nye Bevan? I think it's attributed to, but it was also the Manic Street Preachers album. This is my Now Tell Me Yours. Yeah,
exactly. Yes.
In that is we come to a shared understanding of something that is, or drawn into a deeper sense of God's truth, because we've had our understanding broadened by that other person's perspective, maybe. So so I mean, just thinking there are people joining us who in various ways, some in ordained ministry, some in music ministry, some in ministry and discipleship within the local church and community. From kind of your experience, are there any kind of top tips or particular bits of encouragement that you would kind of want to send people on their way with, in terms of encouragement to keep on keeping on in the ways in which they are feeling called to live out discipleship and ministry, even if, perhaps folk around them, other Christians, don't quite get it and are perhaps going, don't do it?
I'm not sure if I have a list of tips, but there are 1 or 2 things I've observed have been helpful to people who are in that situation, and that, I mean, they're things as basic as ensuring that you are yourself staying as close to Jesus as you can, because if your focus is too much on what people are thinking, either the people who are paying you to do what you do, or the people who've given you a particular task, or the people in the community that you're serving, if you pay too much attention to what their response is, it can kind of just divert you and distract you from what you're supposed to be doing. So I think for pioneers, it's always been a question of being absolutely rooted in Christ, being rooted in a depth of spirituality that means that you're in a place where you can listen to what the Spirit is saying, both in your personal experience, but also in the context where you happen to be working. I think there's also something about having trusted people who will walk with you, especially if you are working maybe on the perimeter of church, if you're somewhere kind of on the fringe where you feel a bit detached from the normal structures of church life. I think it's really important to actually have maybe a group of people, maybe one trusted friend, or a spiritual director, somebody who perhaps will be a mentor that you can just talk to and be absolutely honest with, and who can support you, because it can be a very lonely place to be, and there's no denying that. That's not to say we shouldn't be in those places. I think Jesus trod some very lonely paths himself, but he by and large shared that journey with people who were close to him, and who usually kind of got the drift of what he was doing. So there's probably lots of other things that could be said, but those two things in particular, I would say, one is rooted in your own experience of God and of Christ, and the other would be actually having some kind of trusted friend or group of friends that can journey with you.
Yeah, no, and I was just thinking, reminded me of another great metal song, "The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner" from Iron Maiden. So that could be the metal pioneering anthem. But
Absolutely.
keep running on and on. But I think that idea of actually the people around you.
Wayne's just made the point about listening, and I think that's absolutely vital. And I think pioneers are encouraged to listen to God, listen to the community, listen to the Christian tradition, and listen to themselves. And that kind of deep listening is absolutely vital. I agree with him.
Mm-hmm. Which is why you are so very holy and wise. Whereas my response when I saw Wayne's comment about listening was to say, "Pardon?" So I guess just kind of drawing to a close, I just want to thank you for your time, and it's been really, really helpful. So you mentioned sort of dropping some impressive name bands and vinyl. So okay, from your record collection, if you had to save one LP, which one that your wife knows about?
The Yes album.
Okay, yeah.
I just think John Anderson is such a great singer. The lyrics are great. I just love the music. It's one of the first albums I had. It's one that I've rebought. And for some reason, I always buy second hand. But for some reason, I've now bought about 3 second-hand copies of the Yes album, and all of them have had some scratch or some defect. So I think I'm going to have to go back to Chesterfield Market on a Thursday and see if I can pick up another one that's a little bit better.
Well, that's fine. We've all made a note for your Christmas list if that fails. So yeah.
Thank you. I might get half a dozen copies of the Yes album for Christmas now.
Oh, Aaron's a Yes fan as well. There we go. Fantastic. Very good.
Good.
So thank you, Ian. I shall let you get back to your evening. But enjoy the vinyl, and thank you. Bless you. That's been really helpful.
Thanks, James.
Take care. All the best. Cheers, Ian. So a big thank you to Ian. So as we continue this evening, we're going to think more about some of the stuff that Ian's given us to reflect on as we get to our question from the Metal Methodist Way of Life. But before then, let us gather.
As moon rises, the sun slips sight. Begins the ritual of this night. For those convinced their path is right. Gathered from north, south, east and west, yet called at another's behest, those treading the path that is left. From near and far come as you are to this place, and embrace this space as darker hue embraces you. Of water, spirit, earth and fire, confessing the sins of empire, we come with our wounds and desire. Sensing that we are not alone, drawn to the flame that guides us home, for here you, me and yet to be. Importance and signs of these times, for the sake of all those maligned, is yet the home of the divine.
So yes, wasn't that good? Wasn't that good and encouraging? So yeah, I hope you do feel encouraged. Whatever your context, whatever your situation, whatever it is that God, you feel God is drawing you towards, even if it looks and sounds and feels like something that those people in any existing church community belong to will be going, no, just may you be encouraged and. And maybe through here, wherever it is, have those people around you who can journey with you through that discernment and support you. So, tusen tack for Ian Bell, and we thank him for all that he is, as well as his ministry. And anything else that you wish to tusen tack as we give it up with some semi-power metal all together now. Tusen tack! So tusen tacks are dropping. For anybody who has not joined us before and wondering what the hell I'm on about, if you're a fan of Scandi dramas, you will recognise the word tack as sort of thanks. Tusen tack is from Old Norse, I understand, and Danish, meaning 1,000 thank yous. So just capturing those moments as we think back on this day of one thing or maybe many things that have lifted your spirits, that have been life-giving, that has made your soul sing, that has given you a sense of hope, a sense of the divine God, the other. And we say thank you, 1,000 thank yous, tusen tack. So from my mother, seeing the sun highlighting pampas grass against the storm blue sky. Oh, yeah. If anybody sees anything like that and takes a picture of it, you can go to theworshipcloud.com and upload those wonderful photos or any bits of artwork or writing that you've done and share them with other people to use in their discipleship, spirituality, acts of worship, and receive royalties for it, or maybe give those royalties to charities such as www.allwecan.org.uk. So, oh, that's awesome, Aaron. It will be if I pressed it. Choose to take from Aaron for a great community of like-minded believers. Amen, brother. And from Patrick, the strength of Methodism is our theology of conferring. We expand our horizons and deep our experiences as we talk about God. Yes, that we come to our understanding of God through conversation and conferring, and all our decisions in the Methodist Church are made by our conference, the place where 100 of us gather and have a conversation, and that's replicated across districts across the country and within circuits as well as individual churches. Tusen tack for Wayne for a very excited and unexpected meeting that could have a great impact on the direction of travel. Oh, special features. That sounds very exciting, Wayne. Oh, intrigued. Intrigued of Sheffield, writes. Tusen tack from Joyce for a socially distanced chat with the neighbours. Fantastic. Several plugs tonight. There's one from Wayne for the www.theworshipcloud.com. Honestly, I think particularly I am always so grateful for the Worship Cloud during this season of Advent because, yes, it is by probably slightly depressive nature and my love of rock and metal, but I do quite enjoy this season as we are waiting for the light, but also to kind of engage with some of that darkness. And there are some really quite profound photos and pieces of art that I particularly enjoy around this time on the Worship Cloud. So thanks to all those who contribute there. And also, if you are involved in leading acts of worship, particularly online, or trying to get things to people who are unable to join online so they can share in the same act of worship, maybe written or printed or via telephone, then the Worship Cloud is also the place where you can sign up for the Vine, which is a fully scripted, everything you need for a acts of worship readings. Also then links, if you're doing it online, to music you can use without getting into trouble with the copyright police. All of that is there on theworshipcloud.com. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your Tusen tack moments, mine from today, as well as talking with Ian and being here tonight, because I've been feeling a bit I have to say this afternoon. I don't quite know why. Just really, really tired. And yeah, chatting with Ian and being here, I'm all bouncy again now. Great. But the other thing I did was I went to that's awesome. Nice one, Aaron. Yeah, check it out. It's cool. And equally, might be a place if you want to share some of your stuff there as well. Might be something you want to look at. So I went to the Parsons Cross Initiative. I think I played a track that was put together using quotes from people who use the food bank and community there. The one that had an F-bomb in it that I forgot to warn people about. And again, I was saying that, whoa, I'm not doing it deliberately. This is what these are people's actual words, and it expressed their sense of frustration, anger, despair. Thinking that they've ended up in a situation, never thinking they were the one who'd be using a food bank, and yet life has been such that that's where they're at. And now Parsons Cross, they're in with Food Share, which is a supplier of affordable, sustainable, nutritious food, meals ready to go. And Parsons Cross Initiative is a distribution point for that. So it was a privilege to hang out with St. Nick of Waterfield from there and have conversation, all very, very COVID friendly, but just meet with some people from that area, have conversation. For some people, it's the first person they'd spoken to in 3 days, but also to meet a practical need, and to show God's love in a very practical way was very, very fantastic. And just made me feel centered again in myself in terms of what, for me, a big part of discipleship is. So choose and tack for all of that, but recognizing that there's stuff we might want to lay down as well, including the fact that even before COVID, we were in a situation in this country and many others where food banks are seen as an essential part of life and an expected part of life, rather than wanting to lay down or rant and campaign and lament or be prophetic and challenge the fact that we even need food banks in the first place. And maybe it's stuff that you've experienced that has hurt, that you are carrying regret about, whatever it is, a chance to lay that down as burdens we don't need to carry anymore. We can lay it at the foot of the cross to a God who is big enough for it all and is with us. So we can say together,
the principalities and will to power, the worms from within my own darkest hour. I confess all the regrets and the regrets, the burdens and fears, the lament and the tears. I lay them down.
So having kind of heard and spoken and shared with Ian about how we share and explore what good looks like in a particular good news looks like in a particular context, and how we share it in a way that might be understood, got me thinking about Pentecost, which of course got me thinking about Witch Hazel and their amazing new album, Witch Hazel 3 Pentecost, and also the fact that Colin from Witch Hazel is doing a DJ set tomorrow night. And on top of all of that, Colin has given me permission to play some Witch Hazel tunage. Aha! Awesome. So we're going to do that in a bit. But as we think about Pentecost and that sharing good news in a way that can be understood, tonight's reading from the Metal Bible is from Acts chapter 2 and the story of Pentecost, not the Witch Hazel album. The Jewish festival of harvest that became then the birthday of the church for Christians. On the day of Pentecost, all the believers were meeting together in one place. Suddenly there was a sound from heaven like the roaring of a mighty windstorm, and it filled the house where they were sitting. Then what looked like flames or tongues of fire appeared and settled on each of them. And everyone present was filled with the Holy Spirit and began speaking in other languages as the Spirit gave them the ability. Bob Fleming. At that time, there were devout Jews from every nation living in Jerusalem. When they heard the loud noise, everyone came running, and they were bewildered to hear their own languages being spoken by the believers. They were completely amazed. How can this be? They exclaimed. These people are all from Galilee, and yet we hear them speaking in our native languages. So, what are the different languages that people speak, particularly those who I guess outside of church, the sort of people Ian was talking about who perhaps have tried to and not had found it difficult to engage with church, people who perhaps would describe themselves as spiritual. What is the language they speak to? What is good news, and how would you communicate good news within, kind of, I suppose, for us, metal culture, or whether it's on the coast in Devon, whether it's on the commuter train, those different places. What does good news look like? How might we? So a Methodist way of life question is, how can we communicate the evangelion, the good news, in a way that people can understand? As we think about our thoughts on that, and also as we share anything that thank you Wayne, as we think about that and as we share also anything that we want to pray for this evening, I'm going to play the song from Witch Hazel from the new album Witch Hazel 3 Pentecost, and this is a song all about Pentecost. It's called Spirit and Fire, and the chorus is Spirit and Fire, show me the way. Spirit and fire, hear me, I pray. And wherever our context is, as we seek to be disciples and to follow God's call to kind of go out and join in with what perhaps God is already doing, that prayer that the Spirit might lead us in that. So let's rock out, dude. And details are going to scroll across the bottom when I put it on in a minute about how and where you can listen to Colin's DJ set tomorrow night.
We were together in that place.
Man, how awesome is that? I mean, yeah, read Acts chapter 2, and then go to YouTube and watch the lyric video for Spirit and Fire for that song by Witch Hazel, straight out. And the production, if you're listening through headphones, stunning. And Nigel's been listening to it at work, awesome. Very, very good. So yeah. Yeah, Aaron, if you contact if you go to stayaway.bandcamp, hold on a sec. If you go, not stay away, no, go there as well if you want. If you go to witchhazel.bandcamp.com and use the kind of message function, I think it's Colin who mans that, and we'll be in touch. Yeah. So it's good, isn't it? I mean, all of their albums, but particularly this last one, it's just all of it is lyrically, musically, production-wise, the way it sits together as an album. It is totally one Mr. Ian Bell to get on vinyl, and it's available in white vinyl, cloudy vinyl. In fact, it's been so popular it's had to be repressed. Not depressed, repressed. Yes, that's the word, repressed. I was right the first time. And was it released end of October? So awesome. And Colin, when he came on, was sharing that they've actually broken even on this one at least, which is fantastic. And I know many people here have bought their stuff. They're supporting them, so that's fantastic. And some people have even converted fans by sending their car in for an MOT with a Witch Hazel CD in the CD player. The mechanics turn the engine on, the CD started to play. The person goes to collect their car, and the mechanic goes, "That's amazing. Who's that?" "It's Witch Hazel." "Who were they then?" And so the CD was bequeathed to the mechanic, and another order was placed with Witch Hazel for a replacement. How cool! How cool! So there's ways in which we can share good news. Because again, actually, given the lyrics, it is sharing the good news, but in a way that has integrity and in a way that people can understand because they dug the music. So I guess as we come to pray, just prayers for all of us in our own situations as we seek to share through what we say, but also through who we are and what we do and where we are, good news in ways that have integrity with who we are and who we are made to be in God, our passions, our interests, our networks, and how we share in a way within those networks and cultures good news that can be understood. I don't know why I do that. Understood. I don't know if that's some sort of quasi kind of sign language Makaton thing I've just made up. I don't know. But yeah, so anything else that people want to pray for this evening? Yeah, let's continue to pray for Wayne as he after the Alan Whitaker comment the other night, and well, no, and sadly, my mum's Don't Even Know Donald CD never had that effect on me. But then again, nor did my Maiden CD on her. So but we continue to hold you in prayer, brother, and we just pray, Lord, that you would just in this moment, Lord, just deliver Wayne from that demon of Daniel, demon out. You may want to go into the garden and burn that CD, Wayne. There's nothing wrong with Daniel O'Donnell. If you like Daniel O'Donnell, people, it's all good. Just as if you like Bon Jovi, as Angela quite rightly pulled me up on the other night. Yes, space for all are welcome. All are welcome. And yeah, not just here, but actually by God. That's the point, right? Yeah. And this is why I think what Ian was talking to us about in terms of needing to share good news in different ways with a diverse group of people and those networks, it's what we need to do, because it's the only way that how can people know if they've never heard, but in order to really hear, it needs to make sense and to connect with them and who they are, which I think is kind of some of what Ian was sharing with us as well tonight. So shall we pray? Yes, let's offer all of our conversation this evening with stuff that's on our hearts and the people as well. And Ian, as we say together.
To the one in whom all people and all creation have their being, may your kingdom come, your will be done, as above, so below. Sustain us for this day. Show us grace as we seek to show grace to those we feel have wronged us. Save us from the worst that is within us and within this world. For the kingdom, the power and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
And so and now the notices. First of all, we had a bit of Stairway earlier on. That is because Mr. Graham Leslie, multi-instrumentalist and lead vocalist of Stairway, was doing an interview based on the album that we heard a track from at the beginning, the album The Other Side of Midnight. We're doing an interview on Metal Mission Honduras. That is now available to watch. The link is on the Metal Methodist Facebook. So if you're on YouTube or Twitter, if you head over, it's public. So just head over to www.facebook.com/Metal Methodist. You can watch that translation. And again, just an example of what Ian was talking about. So, two people who love metal having a conversation in two different languages, it being translated. Everyone can hear, everyone can understand, and the music and the love of music and the message through the music transcends all of those kind of linguistic barriers through the gift of the internet. Amazing. So do check out that interview if you want to go deeper into that album, learn more about it, and also hear some more songs from that. And as previously mentioned, the other notice is thus. Colin from Witch Hazel is taking over the airwaves tomorrow night at www.gimmemetal. That's GIMME metal, gimmemetal.com. I think it's for about 10 o'clock our time. So head over there. I'm not sure if it's going to be available afterwards. I don't know. So if you want to hear Colin drop some amazing metal tunage, I think there's going to be some Ghost. There's going to be it's when Colin was here, the sort of bands he was talking about, the stuff he was into. If you are a fan of metal, particularly with a good tune and a good riff, then you will like his music. So go and support him and bang your head at 10 o'clock tomorrow night. That's awesome. I think that's it, folks. So thank you all for your company. Again, just shout out to anybody who watches this on the replay. You're also very, very welcome. It's good to have you here as well. And also on Facebook and YouTube. You're very welcome, Joyce. And if you haven't commented, that's fine. If you ever want to, just comment, say hello. Just say hello. Drop in something you're listening to that's helping you get through a day. That'd be good to hear. But thank you. Go well as we try and encouraged by Ian just to celebrate who we are in God and to use that, our networks, our passions, as the place in which for such a time as this we are placed and called and in a position to share good news as we understand it in a way that makes sense to our context, our network, our cultures, whatever those are, in a way that's understood, but also again knowing from what Ian said that actually God goes ahead of us and before us, and sometimes, as Wayne said, we need to kind of just listen, be open, and join in and give it a go. And the rest is God. It's an adventure. It's the greatest adventure ever, and we're doing it together, so we're not alone. How cool is that? So let's send each other. No, let's not, because we've done that, James. Oh, yes, sorry. Let us sway for me, Honduras.